Have you ever wondered why, despite our deepest efforts to find happiness, we seem caught in the same cycles of wanting and disappointment? Why do we pursue pleasure only to find it slipping away, leaving us hungrier than before? The answer lies hidden in something so ordinary, so constant, that we never think to question it: the simple act of experiencing itself. Today we explore one of Buddhism's most profound revelations: the nature of formations, or saṅkhāra. This video is a summary of a discourse by the late Venerable Amatha Gavesi, whose penetrating insight into the workings of consciousness illuminated these subtle deceptions for countless students of the Dhamma. Formations are not physical shapes or objects. They are mental volitions, the invisible engine behind every action we take, every desire we feel, every moment of suffering we endure. They operate through our six senses: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking. Through these six doorways, we don't just experience the world, we create it moment by moment. But here's what's extraordinary. Hidden within each innocent moment of seeing, hearing, or thinking is a masterful deception. Our consciousness doesn't just enable us to experience. It creates someone who is having the experience. It conjures up a me who is seeing, a self who is feeling, an I who is thinking. And this imaginary being becomes the architect of all our desires, attachments, and endless cycling through suffering. Right now, as you listen to these words, notice: is there simply hearing happening, or do you sense that you are hearing? This subtle difference holds the key to liberation itself. When we strip away all complexity, what does a human being actually do in this world? The answer is beautifully simple. Every action you can possibly perform falls into just six categories: seeing with your eyes, hearing with your ears, smelling with your nose, tasting with your tongue, touching with your body, and thinking with your mind. Think about this for a moment. Whether you're climbing mountains, falling in love, creating art, or building a career, everything ultimately reduces to these six basic activities. You might see new sights, hear different music, taste exotic foods, or think revolutionary thoughts. But you cannot step outside these fundamental functions of human experience. Here's what's remarkable. With just these six simple activities, each of us creates an entire universe. The world I construct through my senses is completely different from yours. As the Buddha taught, you are the world you create through your sensory experiences. But if we're simply seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking, if these are just natural processes like flowers blooming or rivers flowing, then who is this I that claims to be doing these things? Who is the supposed author of these experiences? This is where we encounter consciousness's greatest magic trick: the birth of the imaginary self. Watch your experience right now with the curiosity of a detective. When you see something, notice it's not just seeing that occurs. There's an immediate, unquestioned sense that I am seeing this. When you hear a sound, it's not just hearing, it's I am hearing this. This sense of an experiencer, a witness, a self who owns the experience, arises automatically with every moment of awareness. But this I is not what we think it is. It's a construction, a mirage created by consciousness itself. Here's how the magic works. In a moment, contact occurs. When your eye meets light, when your ear encounters sound, consciousness doesn't just create the thought that enables you to see or hear. Simultaneously, it produces 5 mental factors that together create the convincing illusion of someone who is experiencing. Form, the imagined appearance of the experiencer. Feeling, the sense that you are experiencing pleasure or displeasure. Perception, the identification of what's being experienced. Mental activity, the sense that you are performing the action. Consciousness itself, the energy that animates this entire construction. These 5 components, what Buddhism calls the 5 grasping groups, aren't separate things. They arise together in each moment, creating both the stage and the audience, the world and the self who seems to experience it. Consciousness is like a masterful filmmaker, creating such a seamless production that we never notice we're watching a movie. We become completely absorbed in the story of me having experiences. Now here's where the real tragedy begins. This imaginary self that consciousness creates doesn't remain a passive observer. Because it feels absolutely real to itself, it begins to pursue what it experiences. When this manufactured you encounters something pleasant, perhaps a beautiful sunset, a piece of music that moves you, or a moment of connection with someone you love, it doesn't simply appreciate and let go. It wants more. It tries to capture the moment, to possess it, to repeat it. When it encounters something unpleasant, criticism, loss, physical discomfort, it doesn't simply acknowledge and allow. It wants to escape, to fight, to ensure this never happens again. But pause and consider something profound. If there were truly no one there to enjoy pleasure, could pleasure actually exist? If there were no one to resist pain, would suffering arise? Pleasant and unpleasant exist only in relation to this imaginary experiencer that consciousness creates moment by moment. Watch this process in your own life. You see something beautiful, and instantly there's not just appreciation, there's I want this. You taste something delicious, and it's not just taste, it's I need more of this. You think a pleasant thought, and it becomes I should think this way more often. Each innocent moment of experience becomes a launching pad for desire, and with desire comes the inevitable disappointment when the world doesn't conform to what this imaginary self wants. This is why the Buddha made his profound declaration. There is suffering, but no sufferer. The suffering we experience is absolutely real, but the one who suffers is a case of mistaken identity, a mirage created by consciousness itself. Let's trace this process with the precision of a scientist observing natural law. You see something, let's say a vibrant red flower. In that instant, 1. Contact occurs between eye, flower, and consciousness. 2. A thought arises that enables seeing. 3. Within that same thought, the 5 grasping groups construct the idea of a someone who is seeing. 4. This imaginary observer evaluates. How beautiful! I want to see more flowers like this. 5. What began as simple seeing has become craving. The same pattern repeats across all 6 senses. You hear music and become someone who likes this music. You taste chocolate and become someone who craves sweetness. You think a clever thought and become someone who is intelligent. Each sensory moment, instead of simply arising and passing away, becomes the foundation for an identity, a story, a self who must be maintained, protected, and satisfied. And here's the most remarkable part. This process doesn't stop when the body dies. According to the Buddha's teaching, at the moment of death, consciousness performs its familiar magic one final time. The dying person experiences a final vision, either of an action they performed or the result of that action pointing toward their next birth. Even as all the senses shut down, the mind creates one last thought. And embedded within that thought are the same 5 grasping groups, the same pattern of creating an imaginary experiencer who grasps onto this final moment. But consciousness doesn't end with bodily death. These deeply embedded 5 grasping groups, reinforced through countless moments of believing in the self, carry forward into a new birth, not as a soul traveling between bodies, but as a pattern, the pattern of consciousness continuously creating the illusion of someone who experiences. Now we can understand what the Buddha meant by ignorance, avijjā, independent origination. It's not simply failing to understand abstract philosophical truths. The fundamental ignorance is much more immediate and personal, not recognizing that there is no permanent self, no fixed being, no unchanging experiencer actually present in any of our activities. From birth to death, we live in complete acceptance that there's a me inside experiencing life. But what if this most basic assumption is wrong? Look closely at your own experience. When you see, is there truly a separate self, or just a process of seeing arising from causes and conditions? I, object, light, consciousness meeting together. When you think, Is there actually a thinker controlling thoughts, or just thinking appearing and disappearing naturally, like clouds forming and dissolving in an empty sky? Everything we call my life might simply be cause and effect unfolding moment by moment. The mind directs the body responds. The senses encounter their objects, consciousness flickers on and off like a strobe light. No controller, no permanent experiencer, no fixed self anywhere in this natural process. Understanding this intellectually is just the beginning. The mind that has believed in a permanent self through countless lifetimes cannot simply think its way out of this ancient habit. This is why the Buddha emphasized the crucial importance of developing concentration. Think of consciousness like a knife. With a dull blade, you cannot cut through even soft materials. But sharpen that blade, and it becomes capable of cutting through the toughest substances. Similarly, consciousness reveals its deepest insights only when refined through the practice of concentration. When it becomes stable enough, sharp enough, to see beneath the surface of ordinary experience. Without this mental training, we remain trapped at the surface level, continuously reinforcing the illusion that someone is there having these experiences. But with a concentrated mind, we can begin to witness the actual process. Formations arising and passing away, consciousness creating thoughts while simultaneously creating the mirage of a thinker. Here's a simple practice you can try right now. Choose one of your senses, perhaps hearing. For the next few moments, just listen. But instead of listening as someone who hears, see if you can notice hearing itself happening. Can you find the person who listens, or is there simply the process of sound meeting awareness? Don't strain or force anything. Just observe with gentle curiosity. If you notice yourself creating a listener, that's perfect. You're beginning to see the process the Buddha described. When this understanding moves from concept to direct realization, when you actually see how consciousness creates the illusion of selfhood moment by moment, something profound shifts. It's not that you achieve some special state. Rather, you recognize that the achiever was never real to begin with. This realization comes with absolute certainty. No teacher, no book, no authority can convince you that you have or haven't seen through this fundamental illusion. It's as clear as recognizing you've completed a task, because you literally have. You've finished the work of believing in a self that was never there. The Buddha described this moment simply. I have nothing further to do. I have finished what needed to be done. Not because some person has achieved enlightenment, but because the very process that creates persons who could be enlightened has been completely understood and released. This is nibbana, not a place you go or a state you attain, but the simple recognition that the traveler was always an illusion, the attainer was always a mirage. Life goes on, seeing, hearing, thinking, but without the burden of a self who needs these experiences. It's like watching a film while fully aware you're in a theater. You can enjoy the story without being trapped by it. Energy once spent defending a self now flows into genuine compassion, natural wisdom, an effortless response to life's demands. Your invitation to investigate. This teaching isn't about belief, it's about direct investigation. Right now, consciousness is performing its ancient magic, creating not only your experience, but the sense of someone experiencing. Can you catch in the act? Notice the gap between pure experiencing and the story of someone experiencing. See whether you can find an I, or just the process of seeing, hearing, thinking. This simple inquiry is the path to freedom. Formations that bind us are happening right now. See them clearly, and the chain breaks. Every moment, consciousness creates your world and a self to experience it. Recognizing this deception is the key to ending craving and suffering. As the Buddha invited, investigate directly. Discover whether there's truly someone having your experiences, or if there's only the natural unfolding of cause and effect. May this insight dawn clearly in your own experience. May you see through the formations that bind you, and abide in the profound peace beyond all craving and rebirth.